even, a little bit of kind of titrated processing can be very profound.
Yeah.
When you're going for these early things that, like you say, get encoded then and generalized across the brain. That's what Francine, says with AIP, right? Is that if we're
Yeah.
not able to reach for adaptive information because of these blocks, that's going to have year upon year upon year layers of implications. So
In this video, Jackie, Flynn, and I are talking with Anne Beckley-Forest and Annie Monaco about using EMDR for treating complex trauma, attachment wounds, and dissociation. Anne and Annie specialize in treating children and integrating play therapy and other techniques with EMDR. In this video, they share some of their most creative techniques. And toward the end of the video, Jackie and Annie do a little demo that is definitely worth watching. So here is the interview with Anne Beckley-Forest and Annie Monaco. Okay, so I want to start, before we start our conversation with Anne and Annie today, I want to make a few announcements. And for those of you who were in our conversation yesterday with Carby and Sue, some of them I might repeat myself, but one thing that I want to mention is that we have a special guest with us today, which is Yanick, who is the founder of bilateralstimulation.io. The platform that was available for us, all EMDR therapists, for free when the pandemic started. And he has some news. And we have a really, really nice giveaway. One of you will win the new buzzers that were developed by bilateralstimulation.io. I want to say that we, as an EMDR community, are trying to make consultations more accessible. So if someone, when we did a little survey, a little poll in our community, and over 50% of the people are not certified. Now, it's not about the certification. It's not about getting a piece of paper from EMDRIA, but it's about really getting better. So if anyone is interested in consultation, please let me know. And we have a number of consultants, approved consultants, and consultants in trainings, and we're really trying to make it more accessible so it's not going to be affected by, time zones or costs or anything. We want to help anyone to get certified. And then exciting news about next month. So next month we have Debbie Korn as our guest, and we're going to go over this book by Debbie Korn and Michael Baldwin, who is her co-author. And our giveaway for next month, and I'm really excited about that, will be 1 hour of individual consultation with Debbie Korn.
Wow.
Yeah, I was a little embarrassed.
I'm coming.
Would you do that, Debbie? Because she's
Yes.
she's a busy lady.
She's amazing.
But yeah, she is amazing, and I'm a little jealous of whoever's gonna get this 1 hour consultation. So stay tuned, and I think we are ready to start.
Well, hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm here with Rotem. My name is Jackie Flynn. I'm the host of Play Therapy Community Podcast. And together, Rotem and I are just like super excited to chat with Anne Beckley-Forest and Annie Monaco. They are playful EMDR folks that basic EMDR trainers, experts in their field, just wonderful people to know. And also just really generous people with their knowledge. So today we're going to talk about dissociation and attachment. And I know one of the many specialties that they have is expressive arts, and how when many of our adult clients come in, their kid parts show up. So this is good knowledge. Even if you don't work with children, you're like working with children. It's amazing. So thank you, Anne and Annie, for being here with us.
Well, we are always excited to spend time with you, Jackie, and now we're happy to be back with with Rotem. We had a great time at our last interview. So
Yes.
that time went super fast. And I know, it's a heavy topic, right? Because what we're really talking about is just the depth of human suffering. I mean, in a word. And really, the reason why it's so important to spend a lot of time on thinking about attachment wounds is because this is not easy EMDR. This is not basic EMDR. And so that's where the push towards consultation and really deepening skills is so important. So I think it's interesting that that's your conversation that you're having in your community, and that this is our conversation, because I think the only way to, kind of make a path forward in processing, and get out of perpetual preparation phase is with complex trauma is good consultation and conversations like this and further training. So I learned a lot actually that I know about this topic from Annie along the way, and also from my roots as a play therapist, where we're not always so concerned with the telling of things and the words. We're often on that kind of right brain side. And it's interesting because I think even in my adult work, I have to get people in a kind of playful, curious frame of mind in order to do that processing well. So
I agree
that
with
would just
that,
be my
and 100%. I think that with adults, if we're not training ourselves to think right brain to right brain, that's where the healing really happens. We kind of fall into the trap of just going into content of what's happening, but the real healing really happens when we're in the right brain, when we are in our right brain and the client is in the right brain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think it makes us human. I think about Dr. Siegel talks about that connect and redirect. If we jump right in with all of these kind of techniques, and by nature, I think EMDR is so structured that it could be easy to fall into that. But if we show up as human to human and people feel felt, it goes down to safety and connection. Then they can lean into it and we get an entirely different process. But when you think about like dissociation and attachment and stuff like that, sometimes the parts of us that show up initially in therapy are different than the parts that show up after they trust and they feel connected. So I think we get entirely different work done when we show up right brain to right brain. I love how you put that, Rotem.
And, I think Ann and I often do our workshops with both topics because it's really, understanding attachment wounds is different than trauma wounds. And that's something I, learned from Shirley Jean Smith. I know you had her as a speaker, right? That it's very different. And what Ann and I spent a lot of time is trying to teach clinicians how to take really solid attachment histories. And that's not an easy process. I give people a list of questions to ask, but it's a really big struggle to get at the early wounds that many clients have no idea how to explain to someone, especially if there isn't physical or sexual abuse, and yet a client has so many symptoms.
Absolutely. And I think, first of all, yes, Shirley Jen Schmidt was our guest in January. And I love the way she explains the difference between trauma and attachment wounds.
Yeah.
Trauma is bad things that happened, and
Yeah.
attachment wounds a lot of times are good things that didn't happen. And I think what happens is that clients don't even know that the good things didn't happen to them. They don't realize that until they come to therapy, and we are, if we are trained to take history, not just the trauma, like we learn in basic EMDR training, what are the targets, what are the bad things that happen, but we're starting to explore the relationships with, the primary caregivers, mostly with biological or, parents who are adoptive parents. I think that that's really important. It adds a layer, this whole attachment and attachment styles that people develop.
Correct. And something we've been trying to really teach is what happened in those first few years in terms of caregivers. So many consultees, when they come for consultation, I'll say, so who were the caregivers during the first few years? And of course they say, parents. And I'll say, but but did parents work in the early years? Was there nannies? Was there grandparents, aunts, uncles, neighbors? And most of the time is, I have no idea. And so you know, it's really one important point I think I want to make today is you have to really ask about who took care of you in those first few years, because all, you know, it's what Diana Poole, she's another attachment expert, but she calls mothering presence, right? It's not just about mom and dad, but it's other people that really are caregivers, and they can cause attachment wounds too.
Yeah, the relationship consistency, like
Yes,
Dr.
yeah.
Perry talks about in that book, What Happened to You. I think that really shows up when we're doing our target sequence plan or our history taking, really looking at not necessarily kind of what happened, but what is the effect of what happened, or like Rotem was saying, what didn't happen. It can even kind of, I think back at that like EMDR definition, how it clearly kind of states what we need to do in each phase. And sometimes the complex history can be so overwhelming that we need to kind of hold off and take just what we need to get started and then spread it out throughout the process. And expressive arts does that so well. It has like that safe distance, but the
Yeah.
depth, like words can't go.
Well, and the other piece of that is the attachment, you know, wounding affects all the relationships throughout the lifespan, wherever we're entering our client's story. Now we have to develop a safe therapeutic alliance, and it's an attachment system with someone who may be defended or maybe more of a dependent, kind of clingy, anxious style or whatever, and what that brings up for the therapist. So it's the other piece of consultation that I think I, as a consultant, really dig into is, what does this being with this client bring up in me? And whether, you know, is it bringing up in me? Am I developing a kind of avoidant attachment style with the client's,
Yep.
you know, hostile style? And in child therapy, the added complexity is you really are developing an attachment alliance with the whole system, not, you know, not just the child or the adolescent. And if we don't, you know, develop that role as a kind of safe, secure attachment, going on to the trauma processing phases is probably ill-advised. So
Right, right. And which makes me think about the preparation phase that, again, I'm thinking about what we're learning in basic EMDR training. Preparation phase, you do container and calm place and all these exercises, but especially with those clients who have attachment wounding, part of the preparation is to work on this attachment, right? To have them to create the safe space for them, not the safe space as an exercise, but as our office safe space, to sometimes have us as a resource, right? And us, the therapist, as a resource, someone they can really, for a lot of our clients, for the first time in their lives, really talk, be who they are, and talk
Yeah.
about all these things that happened and didn't happen to them.
right.
And
That's
Can
so-
I just want to mention one more thing too, and I think it's really important when you work with children and teens is taking, and Anna Gomez taught me this very early in my career, was taking attachment histories of the caregivers. And what I'm recognizing in a lot of my consultations is there's avoidance on the therapist part to do that because parents are challenging. And so they don't want to ask to do that. They feel fearful. And, you know, many caregivers will say, why do you need to know that?
Mhm.
Right. And just learning how to explain that, you know, in order to understand how you're a parent, how you became to become a parent, I need to know your background too. What was it like for you to grow up? What was your caregivers like? And so you're not going to get everything you may want, but you know, if you at least start to ask the question, then you understand the bigger system. And you know, I work with adults still, and it's not uncommon for me to ask adults to bring a parent in. You know, I have a 40-year-old woman right now, and she's going to bring her mom in because we want some answers to missing pieces, but we also want to understand how she grew up and why their relationship was so affected. So, you know, I just think it's important, that piece.
Yeah. You know, when you say that, gosh, so many things are coming to mind, Annie. I'm thinking about like the meaning making to be able to kind of fill in those missing pieces when we experience trauma. It stores itself deep in the brain, but when we bring narrative to it, when we're older enough and our brain is developed enough, it can kind of make sense in a different way, and that in itself is so healing. But
Yeah.
I think about like in the beginning of our work when we have that kind of I can't find a better word, but irritation, maybe activation with a client or a parent. Think about Lisa Dion. Her work has like been transformational for me. The setup, when we feel something, a lot of times it's what the client is experiencing. They're
Yes.
kind of projecting on us. So
Yeah.
if we notice it, be like, oh, let's take a minute.
Yeah.
Feel like a little tightness in my chest, and I can hear a change in my voice and heaviness behind my eyes. I
Yeah.
wonder what you're noticing. That in itself can deepen that safety and connection that it takes to go forward with authenticity.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, in work with children, because also do play therapy, as I know you do, Jackie and Annie, that you know, we're not always ready to go into processing phases because we just don't know enough. And we can use our experience of being in the room with the child in play to start gathering the, you know, to be kind of a detective about what is this attachment system and what is the reactivity. And you know, I talk sometimes to people about you really sort of building your phase 3 assessment as the therapist long before you get to setting up the target and now let's process. And part of it is that even for kids, the importance of connecting like these body sensations and these automatic reactions with life narrative can, you know, starts to transform kids. And you know, our goal is to do as much of that as we can before adolescence, because going into adolescence with unhealed trauma is very, very risky. And you know, we were chatting a little bit before the meeting started, and I was saying, "Oh, I know I want some of your listeners who don't think they can work with children. I want them to feel an urgency about the importance of bringing trauma healing to kids, you know, before adolescence, while they still have some attachment figures may not be perfect, but we have the ability to kind of transform that and have, you know, and heal that,
Oh,
because you know that's the whole early intervention mentality, which says whatever people take then into adolescence and adulthood, it becomes harder with each passing year to get to those um, those spots for shifting and processing. So
So
anyway,
you're saying you want to convert us all to being child
yes,
self.
and then you can have puppets, like me and Jackie brought our puppets today because my name is Goofy Fairy. And you can find your inner child as a therapist and meet your client's inner child. It's funny because I do my adult therapy in the same room
Yeah.
as my child therapy. And so the tools are there. And it's interesting, you can see, you know, even just like the things that are out on the table, and my adult clients kind of regulating by starting to handle some of the things in the room, running their hands through the sand or whatever. And then it's a setup then to be able to use those creative arts, you know, or sand tray, or some of the, you know, less verbal ways of tapping into experience, you know, because it's all right there. So
Hey, Anne, I'm love for you to talk about your storytelling technique, because I think it's a great intervention and it can be used with children, teens, and I use it with adults too.
yeah, so it's actually, I mean, you're talking about Joan Lovett, right? And the storytelling technique. And I've been kind of like adding to it, and layering in some of the play therapy kinds of stuff with it. And I'm rereading Joan Lovett's book that didn't get as much airplay as it should have, because it's fantastic. This is The Trauma Attachment Tangle, which
Yeah.
came out in 2016. And it's Joan Lovett talking about the storytelling technique.
can you hold it up one more time, Anne?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's Rutledge. It's The Trauma Attachment Tangle.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it's really Joan's life work. I mean, she's close to retirement now, I think. But her work with, especially with preverbal trauma, including the, you know, the obvious kind of attachment, abuse, and, you know, placement, but also the less obvious, which I want to bring up is she talks a lot about medical trauma.
Yeah.
and how chronic pain and medical procedures in childhood can have an attachment impact that is invisible to the
Yeah.
therapist and to the parents, because these are good parents, but the child's nervous system, kind of fuses together pain and suffering with their caregiver's presence. And a lot of processed stuff going on there. So the storytelling technique is really using the parent or the guardian or whoever the story keeper is, to kind of tell the story, lay out the story in a very kind of dose managed way. So just titrated. I'd call it the sandwich with one slice of meat. So they tell a story about, oh, there was once upon a time, there's this kid who was born beautiful and lovable and good. And then there was this bad thing that happened, one slice of meat. And now that they're getting older, the parents want them to know that, it wasn't their fault that that bad stuff happened, and that they're getting bigger and stronger every day. So that's like the basic structure. And then we run bilateral during that. And it often is a way to get processing started on a target that is out of reach otherwise. And then we can enhance it with drawing. We can enhance it with using the sand tray or the dollhouse to set it up. And sometimes I'll use Q&A with the parent as an interweave in those sessions. And so that's something that I think makes processing accessible even when the targets are not well remembered. And even in adolescence, I've had parents, talk about like adoption.
I just did it with the 16-year-old and his parents around his toilet training age, and parents split and divorce. And, it was so profound to a boy who's been, encopretic for 15 years. And it was bringing the parents, doing this story with him, and literally the day after he stopped being encopretic. And 15 years of that in one session between parents. I mean, that's profound, right? I know, right? And it's something like that, but using it with young adults and adults, we're really trying to expand everyone to understand, like Jackie said, I mean, what we do as kid therapists is what we do with teens, and what we do with young adults, what we do with older adults. And that 40-year-old woman who's going to be in my office with her mom, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the storytelling. It's okay to expand this, to understand this. And this is for adoptive parents to heal, kids, maybe foster care kids they're going to adopt. So this is really a significant method that we really all need to be trained in at all levels.
It sounds so digestible too. I think about even like R-TEP and G-TEP, we have these points of disturbance that are like bite size. It's not this big gigantic meal that you have to inhale. It's like, let's take a little bite of this, and it's digestible. But that whole story about the kid that no longer, they show up as like it's just so huge, these negative cognitions of I'm defective, something's wrong with me, and that's life changing. That like generalizes across their body, their relationships, their world.
Well, and that's the other message, that even a little bit of kind of titrated processing can be very profound. When you're going for these early things that, like you say, get encoded then and generalized across the brain. That's what Francine, says with AIP, right? Is that if we're not able to reach for adaptive information because of these blocks, that's going to have year upon year upon year layers of implications. So,
which now leads us into dissociation, right? Which is how attachment wounds really play a huge factor in why clients have parts of self and what that is about. And so it's just, Anne used a very important word at the beginning, and it's curiosity. And, I'm now trying to really keep it simple with clinicians, is just be curious to whoever walks in the room. I have a 16-year-old DID kid from another country, and, it's something I do with him is I say, welcome to everybody who likes me and doesn't like me today. So he came in last week, he goes, he calls me Dr. Annie, Dr. Annie, everybody's here. Everybody who likes you and doesn't like you's here today, right? But just, I know I actually did laugh, right? He was a funny kid. But right, it's like and wow, the hostile aggressive parts are no longer hostile and aggressive in my office because they're all welcome. And a simple statement like that can make every part feel comfortable. And, I think, obviously this comes from Sandra Paulson. She uses a very interesting word. She uses head honchos. Your best friends of the part systems have to be the head honchos, right? The people who are in charge, and hostile and aggressive parts are in charge. So they are my best friends in that therapy room. They are my co-therapist. And
you mentioned curiosity, and we've been talking a lot about IFS in our community in the last few months, and parts work in general and IFS in particular.
Yeah.
And we have the 8 C's of IFS, and curiosity and creativity. And one of the challenging things that I find, and I think that a lot of our community members, and we had discussions about that, is how to bring compassion to those younger parts, to what's called in IFS language the exiles, the vulnerable parts, that we have these managers that just want to, push them away and not let any affect, any emotion be experienced, because that's threatening to the system.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's honoring them, right? It's honoring those parts, those protective parts, those managers, those firefighters. And, I really am very dramatic in thanking them. And, I spent a whole session with this boy because he was physically trying to harm his mother in my session. He physically trying to harm me, and just really saying, wow, these parts, they really need to be thanked for their work all these years protecting you in the orphanage. And just a whole session really devoted to that. And, what a transformation the next session. And I'm a fast moving therapist. So for me to spend a whole session doing that, I just knew that we were not going to move forward until those parts knew that I saw them as really, in charge and doing great work. And they did do great work, right? They protect him from all potential harm down the road. And those parts they're not time oriented. They still live in another country. They see the people he lives with, even though they are the best parents possible. He sees them as, harmful humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I think it's really, again, just saying, wow, you're in charge. You are really good to this client. And it's these little things like this, that's where many therapists get stuck.
You know what, Annie, as you say that, gosh, it makes me think about like the polyvagal theory. Like, I'm not even that kid. And I felt it. I felt that caring, like here I am throwing stuff, trying to hurt you. And I'm feeling that love and that caring. And think about like the polyvagal theory, like all of our states are important. There's not like a villain, like anxiety is not, that sympathetic fight or flight isn't bad. The dorsal shutdown isn't bad. It's trying to serve a purpose. So it's like you're honoring them. That itself lets down their defensive so they can lean into that relationship. So time well spent. And just to hear that in your voice, like it's not even not something, you don't have to be like a, adult. You can feel like, hey, this lady cares about me, even though that I'm throwing these Jenga blocks. I had a Jenga block through my head. And like sand in my face. Even though I'm throwing this Jenga, they still love me. That's beautiful.
So Jackie, Anne kind of convinced me to dive into kids therapy, and now after your forehead block,
no more.
Now forget about it. Yeah.
We're going to convert you, Rotem. You're going to be bringing your puppets to every meeting.
Here's what I would say to that, which is with our adult clients, their protector parts are sneakier, and we don't always know when they're blocking. Whereas with kids, it's just on display and I don't have to guess, right? I can see it. And also the fluidity and the flexibility of what's going on in that internal system. for children and even young adolescents. There's still a lot of experimentation going on, and our influence is real powerful, and we're modeling that kind of self-compassion. It's very contagious. And so I would just say that yes, it's a little bit more of a high wire act, but on the other hand, the reaching for the possible results, it moves quicker in a lot of ways, and you really feel like, oh, we're doing this prevention. Like, can I teach compassion to somebody at 12 instead of 42?
Yeah.
Look at how that generalizes. So anyway, even though with the lingos,
but I do want to speak to this because Rotem, you're right. Being harmed by a client is, difficult, right? So, I'll tell you what I did with him when he grabbed my wrist and, was trying to dump water or something on me, is I grabbed it's called a toxic waste candy. And it's very spicy and strong. And I ripped it open and I said, here, eat this. And he did. And he came present. He went, that's spicy. I said, yeah, right. And I said, don't spit it out, right. And he just came to. And it's like, it's these little things I've learned from many great therapists. Like, this isn't my, I wish I knew who taught me that, but that's really one of my big things is like, here's a fireball. And he came to, he kept present. I called mom, we walked him outside. We just were calm voices, right. And he was okay. And,
that's a grounding technique. Would you say that's a grounding technique that candy?
Yeah, that in the sense, right? Strong smelling scents will get somebody present pretty quickly, right? You just have to have them ready to go, right? And so these are those little things,
Yeah. And with kids at home, I tell parents popsicles. It's really cold, sharp cold. Unwrap the popsicle, hand them the popsicle.
Yeah.
Pulls them back to that hub, that wheel of awareness that Dr. Siegel talks about. It can pull them like right back. And you were talking about, like, as adults, we have like these blocks up. I just recently went to Marshall Lyles. He's a brilliant, I know you know him. We all love him. I mean, if you know Marshall, you like literally love Marshall. But I went to this dissociation and sand tray training, and I went there expecting to learn so much. And I did, but I learned a lot about myself. So if you'd like, I could share some Fraser's table. Fraser's table is a what would you guys call it? It's not guided imagery. I guess it's
a parts of self, intervention. Yeah.
Very powerful. I had never even thought about doing it in the sand tray, and it was fascinating. For those of you listening that's not familiar with sand tray, it's a beautiful expressive arts modality to where we have imagery through these little figurines. We call them miniatures. Sometimes if it's online, they're models or whatever. And that's what I'm so excited about Yanick's work with his pulsars, because we can do all this online. And we can have now that he has the pulsars available, it's going to take it to a whole different level. But you can represent those parts right there in the sand tray in ways that you wouldn't have thought to do with your words. It taps into that lower part of the brain. So let me show you. It is a little vulnerable. It's my own personal stuff, but I put stuff out there. Isn't that neat? So Marshall,
Jackie now.
Yeah, you get to see me. Isn't this amazing? So Fraser's table basically is, I think of it as like the conference table, conference room. This right here is a table. You can't see it well in the picture, but welcome all parts. Marshall has this voice that has oh my gosh. I don't even know if there's
messages of safety are embedded. Yes.
Yeah, exactly that. So these, he did the Fraser's table with us, and right here, you can't see the candle, but he had us write positive cognitions and stuff. And it was lit up. And some of these parts were very, very positive parts for me. And some of them were parts that I hadn't remembered since my 20s that are very painful. And then after this, there's even stuff underneath the sand. Stuff that I had buried. I wouldn't be able to do that verbally without this. But like the tree,
those felt shifts, right? Where you can feel it, you can't put it all the way into words. And also what I love about sand trays is also there's some containment the miniaturizing of it gives you kind of this like view that feels safer in a way, because you're kind of seeing it from above. You're not down in the sand, in the muck, right, of all of that. So anyway.
That's exactly it, Anne. You're not, it's like it externalizes, it brings it to the forefront. It brings the past to the present. And here's my hand moving these things that normally were just kind of stuck in me.
Mhm.
You
I
described
love
it perfectly. Like this right here, the bear, that's my protective, that's me with my clients. And then Tammy's greatness cards, a little plug for her greatness cards because she's amazing. Tammy Van Hollander. And then the mirror. I struggled with body image issues for a long time. And then I had an eating disorder for a while. And I love books. I always listen to Audible books while I'm in the bathtub still. So it's like an integration of past and present. I feel really smart some days, and some days I can't even remember where I put my keys at. And then I love relationships. And these are all ways to represent the parts of me that came up to the Fraser's table that I may not even said verbally. So, and I'm 48 years old. So you don't have to be a child to really benefit. Like
Yeah.
parts of me healed during this training. And I
Yeah.
thought I was just going to go learn stuff to help my clients. Oh my gosh, I did. But so much more happened than just that.
Thank you, Jackie, for sharing that. That's a beautiful depiction of exactly what we're talking about.
So important.
In Marshall Lyle's training, if anybody's wondering if it's worth it.
Well, we do have Marshall coming. Who wants to talk about the event? Is this an okay time, Rotem?
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the first playful EMDR summit.
A good place to go if you want to start getting your feet wet in EMDR with children, and if you already are a play therapist trained in EMDR. We are building a community that crosses that bridge. So Annie and Jackie, we're in it together. So y'all tell everybody about it.
All right. So this was a dream of mine several years ago that we would bring together two communities. Anne and I, have been trying to do that now, obviously, for many years. And we wanted them to come, beautiful, to a physical location so the play therapy EMDR therapists feel like they have a place. And so it is the first ever Playful EMDR Summit, and it is being held in Jackie's backyard, Cocoa Beach, Florida. It's in November. We already have registration up. We already have 20 people registered. We're
25.
advertising 25. We're advertising very early. We are going to do an in-person with Marshall Lye. Well, first of all, the pre-conference is Anne Beckley-Forest, Jackie Flynn. The conference 2 days is by Marshall Lyles. And then we have Anna Gomez ending the conference on Saturday for us. And so we will take in-person registrations, and we have gotten savvy enough to also live stream it. But it's not just about coming to hear presenters. So every day from 3:30 to 5, we're going to have an experiential, playful event that we're hoping will be out in the sand. Could be parts in the sand. It's going to be art projects. Jackie's doing a workshop, trauma sensitive yoga. So this is way more than that. And of course, we're going to do morning yoga, morning meditation. So what would my colleagues like to add to that?
Well, since this is about dissociation, I do want to do like a reference for Ana Gomez's stuff. This book, literally, I carried it around. You can tell by the looks of it, carried around like almost like an equivalent of a Bible when I was first trained in EMDR. She's a leader. She's a pioneer in our field.
Yes.
So the fact that we're learning from her is exciting, but she really, intergenerational trauma.
Yeah, Anna, Marshall, you, Annie and I, we've never all been at the same thing, I don't think.
Yeah.
So this is we really wanted to be convergence. And, one of the things that's special about being on this broadcast is the fact that it's a community event. Yeah. And that, in a way, that's kind of an inspiration for what we're trying to build for people.
Play therapy community.
Yeah, people who are using both the therapeutic power of play and creative arts, and people who are trained in EMDR, and bridging that, and realizing that we have to get sophisticated about that, but also we have to have, kind of a collective conversation about all of that, because it's new territory, really. 3 or 4 years ago, if you Googled the terms EMDR and play therapy, there was hardly anything to come up. And now there's more and more. And that's because of the community lifting that. It's swelling from the ground up. So it's very important that we take this time to be together and raise the profile of EMDR with children and adolescents as well, because we really need more research.
Yes.
And that's how you get that.
So we also have vendors coming. We have, I believe, already 10 in-person vendors, virtual vendors. So
it's all about the toys, really.
It is all about the toys. So, Rotem, this is your opportunity to come and, purchase stuff, become a child therapist, learn from the best. So
yeah,
I'll have to keep talking more with Anne and less with Jackie with her flying Jengos in her outfit.
Yeah.
Well, and did we talk about the doll when we were on before that we used for dissociation?
No, I think.
Oh, I have a picture of it. You want me to pull up a picture of it? Oh, you have it.
Oh, there she is.
There she is. She's beautiful.
So Annie, do you want to say something? So this is actually a project Annie and I got involved with based on the work of Fran Waters, which people may know from ISSTD. She's the child, for many years was the head of the child division. And her book, Healing the Fractured Child, is all about managing dissociation with children. But then, we sort of are working with some other folks to bring the doll that she has talked about in her workshops for many years to the market. So Annie, do you want to?
Yeah, so these are, I have a lot of dreams that go on, and then I get people to help me make these dreams happen. So I see this doll, and Anne's pulling out the parts of self. Anne and I were on a Fran Waters workshop. I see the doll, I text Anne, I go, we got to have this doll. So Fran only had one made. So we have spent the last several years working with folks to make him, her, them, right? And there's a most wounded part too in this doll.
It's almost like it's giving birth from the head.
Yeah, that's actually what a child said. So this is how we teach not only children, teens, but teach parents about dissociation. And I use this doll with adults, right? Just helping folks to see you're one person, but you have parts of self. And so it's a great visual to help clients feel more at ease about parts of self. It can be for some clients very upsetting to understand that the voice they hear in their head is really a part of self or their hostile self. So
so the doll's name is All Me, because all the parts are me, and is actually available commercially. And we can put the link in the chat. But
they're good people too. They're good people.
Yes, Rhonda and Jacob, who are actually doing all of the hard logistical work of having a doll produced. It's not easy. There's a lot of parts to having a doll, but also to have it be something appealing and durable and something that kids can relate to. And like Annie said, it has educational power for the parents, and just really to take the sting, I think, out of that whole idea, and also to see the continuum. Because sometimes when you bring up parts, people are like, are you saying that I have DID? Are you saying that I'm multiple personalities, 3 faces of Eve or whatever? There's a lot of stigma. Instead of really seeing that this is just how smart brains survive difficult circumstances.
Great statement. Great statement.
And that actually, this is your strengths. These are your resources that we can work with.
Oh, I feel that in my body. Hey, and I know we're almost out of time. You guys mind if I tell them about the salt therapy for phase 1 and phase 2 that we did?
Oh, that's a great matchup with everything we're talking about. Salt. Yeah.
So it's parts of sense of self. And do you guys mind if I share like bubbles and stuff?
Yeah.
On the spot.
We named our parts when we were together.
Okay, so we sat on the beach, right? Annie and I get up very early, and then Anne came out there with us.
Joins, yes.
So I just went to this training. Gosh, it's been months ago now. It changed my life. Violet Oaklander, she has Windows Church children, Gestalt play therapy or Gestalt therapy for children. Amazing. So what we're going to do on the beach with people, but we do it everywhere, that helps with not just dissociation, but we all have parts of self, is to be able to look around and to pick out something and then do these projection techniques on it. So I said, just look around. I'd like you to look around and just pick anything out. So Annie's like, the bubbles. We're on the beach. I was like, the bubbles in the water. I was like, just say, hi, I'm the bubbles. And she's like,
I
hi.
am the bubbles.
Hey, Bubbles, how is it to be you?
Ooh, I'm here on the beach with my two greatest colleagues. I love it. It's
Mm.
peaceful.
Hey, Bubbles, if you could think of some other words or phrases to describe yourself as Bubbles, what would they be?
I'm curious. I have lots of me. There's lots of bubbles. And so all those bubbles just represent so many different feelings and thoughts and creative ideas.
Ooh. Hey, Bubbles, if you could say something, if you could talk, what would you say?
I think that everybody deserves the right to be healed and live a great life.
Ooh. Hey, Bubbles, do you have anything that you do really well as Bubbles?
Oh, as Bubbles, I'm a really good self-care therapist. That's what I'm really good at.
No, be the Bubbles, Annie, be the Bubbles. Like, think of Bubbles. What do you do well as Bubbles?
I appear and I disappear. I appear and I disappear. It's like a podcast. Like, come on, you're off. You're on, you're off. Yes, I'm all over the place.
And I'm going to do the whisper technique. Does that describe you, Annie?
It does. It
Oh.
does.
Hey,
Absolutely.
Bubbles, as Bubbles, what's something that's hard for you?
Oh, saying goodbye to beautiful places like Cocoa Beach. It was hard. It was hard to leave.
Oh, so see how we could get potential targets out. So I would have Bubbles as one part of Annie, but then I may say, okay, let's pick out another part. So she may pick out waves or cloud or birds. I had this one client, well, I probably shouldn't tell the details, but it's amazing. So meaningful. They actually got a tattoo of the part that they picked out. It can be very resourcing. I'm not
Yes.
advocating getting a tattoo for you to stop like therapy technique thing,
Yeah.
but it was pretty cool. So that's
Well,
one
and
way.
it gives you that little bit of distance and also that permission to not make sense to yourself that I think are good ways to invite in, you know, that's characteristics of curiosity, right? Is not thinking about whether something makes sense before you say it, but just kind of leaning into it, grabbing onto it as it kind of flutters by. So I think that's what I love about that.
Because like Annie, for example, is super smart. She's like really smart, one of the smartest people I know, but sometimes that intellectualizing can be like a little barrier. When we do this, we can bypass that and get to the real stuff that's in there. And that's when we can tap in. So where it comes in parts of self, when we think about the importance of integrating our parts of self, if that's indeed what needs to happen. It's not always something we want to rush or anything, but I can have Bubbles talk to Waves. Hey, Bubbles, do you know Waves? Hey, what would you say to Waves? Waves, do you know Sun? What would you say to Sun? Do you know Bubbles too? What does everybody need to know? And then you can connect those parts of self. It's so beautiful. It can be really powerful all by itself, but when you put those pieces into EMDR, holy moly.
Well, and you think about what a rich template for interweaves the expressive arts are. I mean, that's actually what I was telling you. Marshall and I wrote an article for Go With That, and that's really what our thing is about the interweave.
Yeah.
Like interweave doesn't have to be question. It doesn't have to be a conversation. Sometimes a good interweave is an experience that causes that kind of internal felt shift, and then processing can continue. So.
Yeah.
Rotem, do you want us to answer questions?
Well, yeah. So first of all, I'm just looking at the chat, and some people had asked a list of books that were mentioned. I think that trauma book.
Oh, I'll put it in there.
Joan Lovett, are you talking?
Awesome, and yeah, we
I'm
will
so
link
mad.
to that also under that video for people who are not watching it live with us. We'll link to the resources, you know, the training on Cocoa Beach. There were a bunch of people who had some questions about that. So and thank you for posting the link so they found the dates and all that. So yeah, I just want to thank you and Beckley-Forest and Annie Monaco for being back on the Art and Science of EMDR, and my friend Jackie Flynn for helping me this morning. And I want to switch over to Yanick from bilateralstimulation.io to show us the new developments in the world of virtual EMDR. Yanick,
Wait, am I eligible to win? That's one thing I need to
you
know
are
before.
not eligible to win. It's only for our community members who share. So we had a mini campaign for Yannick. So I asked people to share he's trying to raise money now to get into mass production of these buzzers. So some of our community members who shared it on their social media will be eligible. You'll just have to pre-order yours, Anne.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, Yannick, you're on.
Thank you so much, Rotem. Great to be here. So I'll quickly talk a little bit about bilateral stimulation and then about our plans that we have on the software side as well as on the buzzer side and what the status there is and the pre-order campaign that we're doing. So I'm Yanick, the founder of Bilateral Stimulation IO, born and raised in Switzerland and then lived in Berlin for most of my adult life, but also for a bit was studying and working in the US and was an EMDR client myself, had a big impact on me. And back when I did it a couple of years ago, I brought up the idea of, hey, you could do this online. You know, I told my former therapist you could have a video chat and the thing that moves on the screen and sounds and maybe even buzzers. And then he said, oh, you know, that sounds cool, but nobody needs this. Nobody's doing this online. And then COVID happened and he messaged me. And yeah, then it kind of went viral. Like I initially built the version 1 for him so that he can continue offering EMDR online. He shared it, other people shared it, and it became this tool that is now still, to my delight and surprise, widely used in the community. And over time, it kind of went from something that I was working on the side to something that then occupied the majority of my time, and today is actually my full-time occupation. So we kind of turned it from side project to company. And I'm going to share my screen here to show you.
While you're sharing your screen,
yeah.
Yannick, I just want to say again, and I know I said it many times, but I want to thank you for making this tool available, because when the pandemic started, that's what allowed a lot of us to continue doing our work. We were kind of lost like everyone else as as therapists. How do we continue doing our work? And that was available, and it was available for free. So I want to thank you on behalf of the large EMDR community.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Like, it's been really great to get this positive reinforcement, this positive feedback over time. Therapists reaching out saying, "Hey, this really helped me help my clients to continue doing therapy remotely," and it's still such a pleasure, right? I was quite glad when I quit my job and started focusing on it full time. I was like, okay, this feels right, you know, like this is kind of what I should do. So yeah, we've been busy at work over the last year or so. So we upgraded the software, we built the hardware, and I'm gonna show you what's coming there. So first of all, this is the thing that probably many of you know, right? This is the current version, the public version. And drum roll, there's a new version, which I think some of you already have access to, which looks like this. There's a little bit more going on here, but once you've looked around, it's hopefully still simple, which is kind of important to us. So you see at the bottom right here the BLS that your client sees. You can start it. For the client, it still looks exactly the same. So for the clients, it's still just the BLS. And then for you, you can now pause the BLS. That's something that some people want to do. You can stop it as you did before. You can change the color of it, and you can now also change the color of the background. And now especially cool for playful EMDR is you have these motifs here. So you have animal illustrations, you have emojis, you can choose this lion, for example, and then now the BLS is a lion. And we developed this actually with 2 child therapists by going through different motifs with them, trying to figure out, hey, what is kind of the right illustrations here? And yeah, this is where we arrived. So we have this, and then we have diagonal BLS, which was often requested, vertical BLS, and then we have the auditory, right? That is still present. And we have tactile. So I'm going to show tactile in a second, but a quick word on this software here. So this will go live to the public in the next couple of weeks. So this will succeed the current version. And then some features of this will be premium features. Some features will be paid, but the basic version will always be free because we want to keep it accessible. And the things that are important to us is, okay, accessibility, simplicity, right? Like even though there's now more features, we kind of want to keep it simple to use, especially for the clients, right? They still just have to click on the link and then they're in. And we want to keep it reliable. So that's kind of the guiding principle for us as we build these tools. Now, that's the software, but the really cool, interesting part is the hardware. So this is kind of what we spent the majority of our time on in the last year, is to develop from scratch these buzzers, remote tactile buzzers that you can connect to your computer. And then as the client, you get it from us, you connect it to your computer, you connect to your therapist, and then the therapist can control it remotely. So I'll quickly go to a part in video here where you see it. So you connect it to your laptop, and then your therapist can control it, and you can hold them. So I have a pair here. These are right now fully developed. We have sold 50 of them to therapists and clients in the US that are currently actively using this for remote therapy.
Hey, Yanick,
And
maybe you want to stop sharing your screen while you're showing the new buzzers.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And
there we go.
yeah.
So these are the buzzers. And yeah, we produced 50 sets, sold them to a small group of therapists and their clients in the US. They are actively using them right now. They gave us great feedback. And now we want to take it to the next level. And what does that mean? So these 50 that we produced, they were kind of produced in a very manual, cost-intense, labor-intense way. So now, in order to bring this to the public, we need to set up an actual scalable mass production. And for that, we need to raise funds because we need to set up the supply chain, the manufacturing, build up stock in all the parts that go into it, and buy injection molding templates and all kinds of things, go through certifications. So for that, we are doing this pre-order campaign, currently at 78% funded with around about a week to go. So we're pre-selling 400 devices, which will give us the funds necessary to make this a reality. The price is $96, which we really want it to be affordable and accessible. This is more affordable than existing products on the market.
It's the most affordable out of all existing products on the market right now. And I know I constantly check them. So it is the most affordable one.
Thank you, Rotem. I mean, I know your side, so this means a lot. So the interesting thing is these are fully remote controllable, not by the client themselves, but only by the therapist. But we also have some of the therapists using them in office because they're, well, more affordable. We would hope that they're also better in terms of the vibration experience, the haptics, and the kind of control that you have through the software. So this is where we're at right now with the buzzers. And now let me maybe give you a live demonstration here. So I'm gonna be the therapist on the left, and then I'm gonna be the client on the right here. So right now I'm doing this on the same computer, but this would, be remote. The therapist could be anywhere in the world. The client could be anywhere in the world. And now as the therapist, I enable tactile. I can see, hey, my client is connected, but the client does not have the buzzers plugged in. So now I would ask the client, hey, please connect your buzzers. Also, the application asks the client, hey, your therapist wants you to connect your buzzers. So now I'm plugging in the buzzers into my computer. And then we can see here, client has buzzers plugged in. And now when I turn on the BLS, actually, let me make it horizontal again here. So now they're vibrating, and they're rather quiet. So I'm kind of going to illustrate to you the vibration by holding them against my laptop so that you can hear it maybe. Is that audible?
Yeah, we can hear the buzz.
So yeah, they vibrate left and right. They vibrate synchronously with the visual, and we can make it faster, slower. We can increase or decrease the intensity of the vibration. Right now, it's a continuous vibration, left, right, left, right. We can introduce a pause, so it becomes more of a little buzz. And yeah, I'm quite curious to see how people will end up using this, in terms of the configuration and in terms of the combination of modalities. And maybe to close things off before we go to the giveaway, one of the really interesting things that we are thinking about at Bilateral Stimulation IO is, okay, now that many people are doing this online and many people are using our tool, and we have tens of thousands of therapy sessions happening on our tool every week, what could we do with that? What about empowering researchers? So imagine we have such a big amount of sessions. We could work with researchers. They design a study. They tell us which data they need. And we can, in a fully automated digital way, recruit study participants, gather consent, and gather the data, and do that at scale, right? Because what are the inputs? The inputs are, the BLS configuration, which modalities, the session duration, everything, like every research question you could imagine, right? Like, hey, how does it work if I use visual or audio or tactile or a combination of that? And does it matter how long the sets are? Does it matter the number of passes? Like every kind of research question you can imagine. We have a very good infrastructure in place to be able to recruit people, gather their consent, and then track that in a fully automated way. And then that would be the input, and the output would be, well, you could record your SOTs, you could record your VOCs, you could correlate these things, and you could also ask some questions, whatever the researchers would like to do in terms of their study. So that is also one of the big interesting things of bringing tactile into this, because that will really make it a lot easier and powerful in terms of conducting research into this modality.
That's great, Yanick. Thank you for sharing all that. And we hope that you have 90 more units in the next 8 days, so we can all benefit from these buzzers. I think, Yanick, that's the time to pick our winner of the giveaway.
The giveaway. Let's do it. So Rotem set up this nice little wheel here. So I'm gonna spin it.
Are these the names that I sent you?
Yeah. Oh, are they not? Sorry. Are these just the generic names? Oh, okay. Wait. You sent me names here. Let me.
Okay.
Okay. Let's do this again.
What a cool site.
All right.
I slipped my name in there somewhere.
Okay. Little dry run. So now we do the real one.
Okay.
Ooh.
Who is it? Who is it?
Ooh.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
Kramer.
Nicole will be at our Playful EMDR Summit, so that's great.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, she's going to be manning my table. She's wonderful.
Great.
Nicole, I'm gonna put my email in the chat. Just reach out to me with your name and address, and we'll get a set of buzzers to you. Yeah, also anybody else here who wants to email me about anything that I've spoken about, feel free. Also, I'm gonna put in here the link of the pre-order campaign if you are interested in participating in one of the remaining 90 devices to help us make this happen, then feel free. So yeah, thank you, Rotem, for facilitating this, and thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much, Yanick. And again, thank you, Anne and Jackie. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Rotem. Bye, everybody.
And thank you, Yanick. You definitely kept me and all my consultees going. I love your site and the fact that you have pulsars. Oh my goodness, we're healing the world together. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.